And welcome in to a Halloween edition of the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. Podcast where we talk about Michigan football and basketball. And we're heading into a Halloween weekend. Happy Halloween to everyone out there. You know, I know there's people, because I've heard from them over the years, that they love saying that they're not fans of Halloween. I don't like Halloween. All right. You don't like candy. You don't like dressing up and going to parties. You don't like clowns. They scared you maybe when you were little. So the whole thing, I don't know, maybe somebody slipped you some bad candy. Maybe you went to a Halloween party and you got unmasked and, it was a terrible, I don't know, I always thought that it would be like Christmas or, Thanksgiving. Like, how can anybody not like these days? And yet you find that there are people that are exactly in that spot. But, there's one thing that we can all agree on. Everybody loves Michigan football, and you've got the penultimate home game after this Saturday night. Then it'll be the home finale, which will be against, obviously, Ohio State. And the first thing I think about is Michigan ready to beat Ohio State in that game? It's kind of on your mind all the time, but then as you keep going and going and going, and you keep thinking about it more and more and more. So we also have the U of M basketball opener, which is going to take place on Monday. And yeah, even on a football Friday, Dusty May's team looks so good that I think you have to put it in there and give a couple words and think about what this basketball season is going to be like coming up, that tips up on Monday. Michigan, a top 10 preseason team. The experts picking them to go to the Final Four, maybe win it all. I will touch on Michigan hoops and their game on Monday. I'll have a prediction on Saturday night's game against the spread, how I see that, 21.5. But yeah, we are starting though with the football game tomorrow night against Purdue. I thought about putting all the bad numbers. Purdue's got a lot of bad numbers. I mean, they're not very good on offense, and they're not very good on defense. They turn it over an awful lot, and they haven't won a Big Ten game in forever. So, I mean, this adds up to Michigan winning this game. This would be a historic upset if somehow the Boilers would be able to win this one. I would think even keep it close, but, they're going to play it anyways. They're coming in, and we'll see, tomorrow night. But the big story for Michigan is that they have a lot of injuries heading into this game against Purdue. And yeah, maybe it's easier to list off who's going to play than who's going to sit out. It's not that bad, but I think if you take a step back, you say, if actually tomorrow was Ohio State, how many of these guys actually would be suiting up and playing? And I don't, that's the thing. I don't think that there's a lot of precautionary injuries as we get down to it. It's always a touchy subject. Michigan doesn't want to, you get that part. You understand all of that. But right off the top, there's not going to be any Justice Haynes tomorrow. The thing is, the good news is I don't think Michigan needs any of these guys. They better not need any of these guys to win the game. And then they have a bye week. And then you put in Ohio State. Can Michigan beat Northwestern? And can they, on the road, can they beat Maryland on the road, with these guys on the mend? And the answer to all of that is yes. Wherever you're getting your information from, whoever's talking about it, should they beat Purdue? Yes. Should they beat Northwestern? Yes. Should they beat Maryland? Yes. 3 yeses as you get ready for Ohio State. How many of these guys can get back at some point before Ohio State and then for Ohio State? Haynes is the one. And I was saying it on Wednesday. I said it a couple times. Well, your guess is as good as anyone's. Pretty much. It's a foot. No, it's not. It's an ankle. No, not. It's a foot. It's pretty close. Whatever it is, guys want to argue about whether it's a foot or an ankle. I guess if it's an ankle, a high ankle, I don't know. I don't know whether it'd be better if it was a foot. I don't know. Do you come back? A foot makes me think there's like a broken bone. That doesn't sound like something you're coming back from. An ankle is something you can come back from pretty quick. You get a high ankle, then that could take you out of the Ohio State game. Who knows when it comes down to that. But people want to argue about whether, what exactly it is, because his foot, yes, and his ankle and his leg, it wasn't a walking boot. So let the speculation on that. I know he's not going to play tomorrow, and there's a chance that they could get him back for the end of the year. Pretty big deal, since he's their best playmaker on offense. He's been their best player on offense. He defines explosiveness at the position. Come in real handy against Ohio State. I hope that we haven't seen the last of Justice Haynes running the football for Michigan. We're just getting used to liking him. So good news is Jordan Marshall's come in and he's picked up the slack. He's not as explosive. Who is? I don't know. Who is a good question. Not many, but Marshall's pretty good in a pinch, and we'll see a lot of him. And then a lot of people are like wanting to see Jasper Parker. We've seen a little bit of him here and there. You want to see more? I think that's the plan. You see a lot more of Jasper Parker. I would put would you say a 70-30 touch ratio to Marshall to Parker, and how that can be affected is if Michigan is getting up, really big, you could get, more Parker, and that could affect the 70-30 split. So the big news, no Haynes on offense. Hogan Hansen is another one. Sometimes he's on the injury report, doesn't play. Sometimes he is on the injury report and doesn't play. He's barely played, but he's a good player, and he could come back. It's one of those to keep an eye on. Sharon Moore sounded very optimistic about Hansen playing this Saturday. And I know a lot of Michigan fans, and it was almost when the questions were coming at me, I almost was, buying Sharon Moore's immediate response after Saturday night when he got questioned, like, why aren't you using the tight ends more? And he's like, well, we're using them, but, the game plan dictated. Well, I guess why aren't you throwing to them? Was the direct question. And he was like, well, they were in the game plan, and, they had a couple, but it just didn't happen, and they didn't use them. But I think for people to say they want to see the tight ends used more, it makes a lot of sense. They've got a lot of what looks like could be dangerous pass catching tight ends. I don't know how many dangerous pass catching wide receivers they have. Maybe 1.5, maybe 2. But with tight ends, Klein flashed very early in the season, catching the ball. We know he could do it. He's an excellent blocker. So he's got that going for him. But, Zach Marshall got loose against Washington. Scheme him up. And Deacon Kennelly, throw him the ball. Let's see it. Would I rather see a slant to Samaj Morgan? I know, it's like, come on. Trick or treat. Now, I would rather see a pass to any tight end than to my favorite. And I'm sorry, somebody might just be watching and saying, oh, that's sarcastic. No, Samaj Morgan has been my favorite player since, he's been a freshman. I was impressed by him. Was not impressed last year and have not been impressed this year. But I'm waiting Does it do any good for me to say, oh, this will be the game Samaj Morgan brings a punt back for a touchdown? This will be the game that Samaj Morgan takes one to the house. I'm not making that prediction. It would just be, I think it would just make people more upset because they'd be like, Purdue sucks. And now this just means they're going to throw to him more than they would some other guys. So, but I would rather see the ball going in the direction of the tight ends than to Morgan. Other than that, on the offense, get prepared for there potentially being a surprise, and not in a great way, of somebody that might be sitting out on the offensive side. Sorry, I don't know. I don't have the name. I would give that to you. I'm not trying to be tricky or anything like that. I just saw that as I came on. I don't know exactly who it's going to be. Not 100% sure that they're even going to be out. But it's I think two things. One, you have this Purdue game. You better take it serious and everything else. But you also know that if you are dealing with something, Michigan has the depth where if you can not only get this week off against Purdue, you're into a bye week. That might get you right. So if you're dealing with something and it's Ohio State tomorrow, different than if you're playing Purdue and then heading into a bye when it comes down to determining who's going to play and not. I think everybody gets that and knows it. Injuries are frustrating in football. I mean, check in with Lion fans last year. It just kept happening. I could just sit basically the whole defense, but when Hutchinson went down, it seemed like it was over. And then after that, it was just, they were all dropping like flies. And, you always say this. I always say it too. You can't use injuries as an excuse. And they should have beat the Commanders last year, talking about the Lions, but the injuries affected that team big time on defense last year. And there's some injuries now that are frustrating people. That's football. Whether you like to hear that or not, that is football. That's Michigan. So that's on the offensive side. Hanson's one of these. Let's wait and see what happens during warmups, whether or not he's going to be out there. Obviously, they don't need him. So if another week, couple more days to get him right, sit him out. That's the same thing with everyone. But we're not, there's going to be no Justice Haynes tomorrow. That's for sure. And then on the defensive side, both linebackers, here's one of the reasons that you got to hang in there, and you can't get too crazy from week to week. Michigan played like crap against USC on both sides of the ball. And if you broke down the tape or you just, rewatched it and you're looking at it, you saw Jimmy Rolder not play a very good game. Jimmy Rolder looked like he was guessing. It looked like he wasn't on his keys, and he just didn't look like he had a very good game. Looked like maybe, maybe the competition was too much. I don't know. Just didn't look good. But then we know what happened against Michigan City. Came back and, he played one of the better games that you'll ever see from a Michigan player on that side of the ball in the history of the series. So, don't get all this, Roller blows and shouldn't be out on the field, and the recruiting sucks, and Jean-Marie can't coach his way. And then in the following week, the guy comes up big. And I don't know if everybody's patting everybody wink, or I think people were patting a wink on the back last week, but maybe that's just the fandom part. Play to play. I was going to say certainly, but if you don't make one play, people understand. Let's let a quarter go by. Let's certainly see a couple series, but no, I mean at every play, if you're not there and in place, you understand people shouldn't get their scholarship stripped. Even if it's an entire game and somebody plays like that, there's a little bit of patience. Or just a little bit of an understanding of how the game's played. Look, I like to think I'm as passionate as anyone out there, but the wild rapids of dogging guys during a game from play to play is a little bit too much, for me. I know it's a fun thing for people, but, so no Rolder, no Cole Sullivan. I'm excited. That's going to be my focus, is spotlighting it in. I know Bowles will be one, but they've got two freshmen in Taylor and Owasso Boateng. I mean, Boateng in the spring game, Taylor, every time the coaches talk about him, it's in glowing terms. I'm looking forward to seeing these guys out there. And sometimes you can be a great player, very young player, great player, and you're just blocked by experienced, good players. This could be the situation. When Michigan had Eric All and then he was out, and I don't remember exactly, it was a Schoonmaker or who else ended up getting injured, but they needed Colston Loveland. He was not going to be able to get all this time if it wasn't for injuries. Loveland gets in there and he's great, and he ends up being like awesome the whole time, 10th pick overall. I'm expecting that one of these linebackers that we're going to see that's in here, people are going to, why hasn't he been playing all year? Well, there's some pretty good guys in front of him. That's it. So other than that, on defense, Rod Moore is the one. That's a knee, and he's not going to play tomorrow. Again, the question would be, will they get Rod Moore back for Ohio State? Are they going to get Cole Sullivan back for Ohio State? Are they going to get Jimmy Rolder back for Ohio State? These are questions that are on everyone's mind. That, the good part is they haven't ruled any of those guys out, and then it's going to come down to, I think the players are going to want to play, and then they have to decide, just how much they can give them in a game that could be for a berth in the college football playoff on November the 29th. Could end up coming down like that. So that's how I see it. I would like to see, I think every pass, and this is, if you had to say, what's one thing that you want to see from Michigan tomorrow after a win, I would say I would like to see the passing game take a step up and just show some progress and, give you a glimmer of hope. It can happen. We know it was, New Mexico was great. Oklahoma was bad. CMU was great. Not so good against Nebraska, Wisconsin. Every other game, it's been okay. And, a lot of it has to do where you're playing and who you're playing, if not all of it. But this is a game where you would think that a bounce back from Underwood is in order. And if I'm fast forwarding to the Ohio State game, is it going to be the craziest thing ever if Michigan wins these next three games? No, not crazy at all. In fact, it is probable that Michigan wins their next three games. And then against Ohio State, at home with Bryce Underwood, is it probable that Underwood could have his best game of the year and that Michigan could have their best game of the year and that Michigan could beat Ohio State? Probable? I would say that there is, it's even a good chance. It's definitely in the realm of possibility, but it's pretty close to probable that Michigan's going to play their best game and that Underwood, all of the promise and then all of the, kind of like, he doesn't look that hot, is all on, to me, the development where he's at is how he's going to play in that game. Does it really matter if they take a step forward tomorrow in the passing game or against Northwestern and Maryland if he goes out and has a clunker against Ohio State? It's going to be a disappointing year for the team. It's going to be a disappointing year for Underwood. But if he plays well and beats Ohio State, well, it's going to be like, man, this kid's everything that you thought he was going to be. So that's what we're waiting on. That's what we're going to see when it comes down to it. But, to feel good in the meantime, seeing the passing game look like it's getting better and more dangerous, and there's more options, is something everyone wants to see. So there I am. That's it. That's it. Ferris is talking about Haynes being out. Does that mean Michigan passes more? Yeah, I don't, against Purdue, you can do whatever you want. They're not good against, the pass or the run. So, but, Marshall's the kind of back who can carry the mail. So I don't think the game plan, whatever they think it's going to be, changes very much. And not that I don't think it matters, but I don't think it matters too much. I think that Michigan could pass 90% of the time tomorrow night and they would win going away. And I think they could do it in reverse, but I don't think they should just be smashing against Purdue. You're wanting to improve in areas, and it's in the area that this team needs the most improvement on is being able to the passing game. So that's the number one thing. Pass protection, pass catching, throwing the football, if I want to break it down a little bit more. And you should be able to work on these things with Purdue. All right, let's see what the people have to say. The New Life says maybe instead Samaj will make a TD saving tackle for Purdue. Yeah, I wouldn't wish for that, because if you're wishing for Samaj to be making a tackle, he is either going to be coughing it up, somebody else is going to be coughing it up, and he's going to have to chase it down, or he's going to be on special teams and he would have to muff one and then come back, so yeah, I don't want to see that. Your Robbie's talking about Bryce Underwood, and he says he doesn't need to be spectacular to beat Ohio State. Just look at last year. He will get better and should be much improved by the Ohio State game. Well, it's a good point, and yet it's the biggest reason why that Michigan may beat Ohio State again is that Michigan is in Ohio State's mind. I would like to say that I think Matt Patricia will fold, the defensive coordinator for Ohio State, in the biggest moment. He is not a leader of men. His players, when he was the head coach of the Lions, despised him. He just didn't get it. Does that matter that he's a coordinator and not a head coach? Yeah. And then I look at the head coach who, in this particular game, his face gets a little more red, his beard gets a little more dark, and he does stupid things. Michigan is clearly in Ryan Day's head. They're in the player's head. So that part, that was a big factor. And they had one of the greatest players of all time, and Michigan slammed the door to the tune of 35 yards with Jeremiah Smith. Abuko's tearing it up in the pros. Been hurt for the last couple games. He only had 51 yards. They had, Travion Henderson isn't doing great, despite a lot of people picking him for their fantasy team for the Pats. But Judkins sure is. They ran for over 100, less than 100 yards. Meanwhile, Michigan almost ran for 200. Not even throwing out the records or throwing out the talent. I don't know how Michigan won that game. Well, I do. They're in Ohio State's heads. So this part about, you don't really need a quarterback. Just look what happened last year. I don't know. I guess. Yeah, I don't think you can don't bank on just being in their heads like last year. I still don't really, the winning that game is pretty crazy. Yeah. Happy Halloween. What's your go-to candy? Man, I loved Halloween when I was young. I grew up in Detroit. We used to enjoy last night, Devil's Night. It ended up getting a very bad rap and well deserved. But when I was really young, it was fun to go out with a soap and soap your neighbors' cars and their windows. And people would you'd have a little fun once in a while, some toilet paper on the trees. Good, clean prankster fun. You would hear about maybe some of the older kids throwing some eggs, which this not it's not good for anyone's house or good for their car. So I was going overboard a little bit, but then it just started going wild. Then it started, people would take the pranks and, I could talk about some nasty ones, but the ones, then there were people smashing car windows, then, burning down garages. And then every year it was like the idiots wanted to top what had happened the year before. And, it just became, full on, like anarchy, burning down, trying to burn down the city. They've done a nice job since then. I only say that because I used to, when I was young, really look forward to the 2-day stretch, including the Devil's Night. But, I wasn't running around soaping anything. Give me some Reese's peanut butter cups. I know people like to talk about, well, get the bigger ones or the fatter ones, and I'm okay with that. The regular ones are okay. King size one, you get one of those in your bag when you're out trick or treating. You're really feeling pretty good. And then the mini ones. If I have to pick through all of them, the different shapes and sizes, that's the one I'm going to pick. But that would be, I think it's the most popular, and that would be it. But I'm I would say I like is it Homer Simpson that like Butterfingers or Bart? Those were pretty good back in the day. It's been a long time since I had one. My kids liked Kit Kats, and those aren't too shabby. Anything with caramel and chocolate, that kind of mix, is good. I made some. It's not really candy, but out of this pumpkin here that I have in the back, I made the pumpkin seeds. Those were awesome. So that's where I'm at when it comes down to Halloween. I did put a little Halloween, a couple years ago for a podcast. I dressed up and I was Mr. Clean. That was my costume. I'd have to really think about when a time was before that, and I had a costume. It's been a long time, but I've always thought about 2 costumes. And I've said this probably 10 times around Halloween, that I saw someone wearing at a bar in East Lansing, of all places, a Pope costume like this. And it was a huge hit. Everyone loved the Pope. I thought, if I was going to go somewhere, I'd be the Pope. I did see someone today. He had the construction. He had the construction hat with the vest and the boots, and he had the stop start sign. And you could say, well, maybe this was just some guy that was working out of the side of the road and then was, no, the stop start sign, you could tell, was homemade, but it was pretty good. He'd get people, hang on. That looked like it was pretty, that would be a pretty good party costume to go to, because you could get the girl, put the stop sign on there. Hey, hold on, girls, wait a second. Okay. You get the green light, but I hadn't thought about this in a while, but Kiss, the band Kiss, Ace Frehley, who wears the Space Invader silver and black costume, passed away this year. And anyone who wants to have a really cool Halloween costume could just go to Kiss. And I think that they would want to go, and you could do any of them. But I always wanted to do Frehley. And man, I would need the long black hair. I would need the suit, the space suit, unless I wanted to go to a tux. One of their covers, I think, was Dress to Kill. I could have a tux and that, but those were the things that those would be my go-tos. You can't have a bald Ace Frehley out there. The Gene Simmons is the one, probably the most. I mean, he's the meanest looking. Is that the right way to put it? Scariest? If you could have his boots with the teeth and everything. The only thing about those kind of costumes is that nobody knows who you are. Nobody knew who Kiss was. It was always a pretty cool thing about Kiss. You could be the total rock star and everything else that comes with being a rock star, and then you could just wash up and walk out of the arena, and nobody. Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? That's it. I thought that always was pretty cool to be able to do. But if you're going somewhere, you have to wear a costume that I think that you could go where nobody could know who you are if you had a date, so it doesn't matter. But you go into a Halloween costume or a Halloween party and people are dressing up and you're single, you want to be able to, talk to the ladies. And if nobody knows who you are, it's like you wearing a werewolf mask or something like that. You start talking to somebody after a while, girl's probably going to lift up that mask and you're going to have to see you smiling underneath or something like that. All right, one more thing on Halloween costumes. I want to take some feedback and then talk about basketball. Give me my prediction on the game. I saw 2 different Darth Vader costumes in the last 24 hours. Both of them were online, but one, this guy got this box. It said Darth Vader. And it looked pretty, he had the box looked cool, and then it was in a case. And then the whole thing, he had like 2 capes. Now he did have to put on, of course, you have to put on but he had buttons where he was talking like Darth Vader and everything else. Great. But it goes back to that thing where you can be the greatest Darth Vader of the world. You get a nice lightsaber and everything else, but you're at the party, and you're talking to Princess Leia, and she's like, what's going on under the mask? And at some point, you got to be like, hey, what do you think? She might be like, no. The other Darth Vader mask, I should have took a screenshot. It was a sexy Darth Vader. It was for women. And man, I have never seen a better looking Darth Vader. And it had, I have to think about it because you could see her face. It was, she didn't just have a mask on. Hey, nice. She didn't have much, it was, I would say, a scantily clad, but a full face Darth Vader outfit. Sexy Darth Vader. It was sweet. I was like, yeah. I mean, that was, to me, that was the winner so far from what I've seen on Halloween. So, all right. With that, I'm going to read some feedback. Still ahead, basketball. My prediction on the game. Randy wants to talk about Samaj. Says nothing against Samaj, but why can't they try someone? No, that's something against Samaj. If you want someone benched, it actually is something against him. They feel like he can hit a home run. And yeah, does he go up there and swing and miss and strike out? If this is baseball, does he strike out every single time? Yes. When he's in the field, is he committing errors all the time? Is he throwing the ball into the stands? I mean, yeah. So, well, he is either going to, make a big play for this team to win a big game, or he is going to make a bad play and cost this team. I don't think that it's going to happen either way in these 3 games. But is he going to be returning punts against Ohio State? Probably. Are they going to be throwing them slants on a 3rd and 4 against Ohio State? Probably. And so, do I have confidence that 0 for Michigan is going to be making plays against Ohio State? Not really. But it would be a great story. It would be like Jim Harbaugh, who there was a grand slam hire, and Jim Harbaugh, everything. Jim Harbaugh, satellite camps, Dancing with the Stars, pro coaches coming in. This is great. And then, they couldn't beat Ohio State. Couldn't beat Ohio State. Nobody knows how to beat Ohio State more than Jim Harbaugh. Couldn't do it. Embarrassing. And they couldn't win a bowl game to save their life. And then the pandemic Harbaugh looked like he was 157 years old. It just looked like it was over and everything. And it was time to, a lot of people thought that it was just time to dismiss him. And then what a story. He 180'd it and went on a 3-year run culminating in a national championship. Just one of the great stories ever in sports, in my mind. Up, way down, on the verge of being out, to all the way back up. Woo! Yeah, some story. Aaron talking about the Devil's Night arson that went on back in the 80s in Detroit. No question. You don't hear about that anymore. They made the shift from Devil's Night to Angel's Night, and it's been good. LJ talks about something that I was talking about earlier, the tight ends. Might be asking for too much to see improved special teams play, but yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Hudson Hollenbeck blasting the ball 45, 50 yards and with 5-0 hang time every time. Sharon says that's the way he hits him in practice. So start kicking like you practice from Hollenbeck. Yeah, Samaj and punt return. If a coach has their players, I was watching the Miami game last night, and their punt returner, he was on the 5. And if you're worried about what, are they worried about the ball landing at the 3 and then just checking up right there? It doesn't make a lot of sense. I know the punters are great and everything, but you're trying to gain 10 yards as a punt return unit. And so for Samaj, I would like to see him have a clean game back there. Maybe it will be Andrew Marsh. He had one. He was back there. Maybe they'll jettison Samaj Morgan. It'll be all Marsh tomorrow night. Maybe somebody else. Let me think about what the 4 and 5 deep is at punter. It's Samaj. It's Joe Taylor. He's a special teams ace. It's Marsh. I'm going to put Marsh as 2. Taylor as 3. Jordan Marshall was 4, and Justice Haynes. So with Haynes out and Marshall, do you want Marshall against Purdue to returning punts? I would say no. You could also make that same case for Marsh. I don't mind putting the best players back there, but in a game like the likes of Purdue, not really. So I'll go, it's going to be Samaj or Joe Taylor back there. How about the old Baby Ruth? Not bad. I'm not sure if they sell them anymore. I have to admit that when it comes to, where would you go into the gas station? I pay at the pump, so I'm not in a gas station. I've been in 1 in 5 years or something. Maybe on the road, it's been a little bit different than that. But I don't know if they have. Something that was similar to a Baby Ruth was Reggie Jackson had his own candy bar. And I thought that was pretty good. Oh, whatchamacallit? I don't know if they have those anymore. Not bad. I don't know. My daughter gets these individually wrapped chocolates. They're square, they're thin, but they have caramel. It's a long name on the front. Pretty good. My mom's a chocolate snob. She won't eat any chocolate unless it's from Brussels or something like that, or overseas. Everything else is crap, according to her. But hey, Kit Kat in the mix. Maserati Marv, Jeremiah Smith. That's it. Michigan's done pretty well against these great wide receivers. Linda says Jim Harbaugh uniform, khakis, and a Michigan shirt with the skinny block Michigan hat. It's a great costume. You get the khakis, of course, but he didn't do it every year. But the first couple of years, he had the Sharpie around his neck and a whistle probably, but he also had the Sharpie somewhere in there too. Not bad. Not bad. Gene Simmons post. I don't mind seeing those. Old Gene. Like Jim Harbaugh said, get 2 costumes and make 2 rounds of the neighborhood. I don't remember Jim Harbaugh saying that, but not a bad idea. Why not, have a mask of Darth Vader, go down, throw it in your wagon, and then put on a stormtrooper, walk right back up. Nobody's going to know the difference. Ohio State going for undefeated seasons. Wait, I don't know why I said Ohio State. They're going for an undefeated season this year. Who's going for 2 undefeated seasons? Should I know that? Tight ends are in the plan, but some things Underwood cannot find them. Dark chocolate Kit Kats are super deluxe. Remember, as a baseball player, you'd have to sell candy, but their candy was pretty good. They were big chocolate bars. They were pretty good. Ooh, Robbie knows what those square chocolate. Ghirardelli. That's it. Put those up in my top 5, along with Reese's peanut butter cups. What I used to like when I was young? They say lemon. They have these lemon heads, but then Brock should just sell the hard candy lemon heads. I'd buy a bag every once in a while. The problem is, eat those things like eat those things like popcorn, but they're hard. Chomping on straight up sugar. Not the way to do it. Paul Bunyan as a good costume. I like it. Rip is a little scared of my Halloween costume. I've got some decorations up outside. You might be scared if I went with my looks to kill black suit with the Ace Frehley Space Invader makeup and the black hair. That's scary. Smash is talking numbers. Michigan beat Ohio State and then beat Ohio State and then beat Ohio State with almost me at quarterback. Bryce Underwood. Again, I don't think don't be counting on that. Oh, Michigan's going to beat. They don't need a quarterback. Harbaugh going for 2 undefeated. Oh, yeah. That's right. 22, they lost to TCU, and then 23, they did go undefeated. That's it. Yeah, trick or treat. Our Bun candy bars. Now, I don't know. Did you misspell that? Fun bun? I'm not familiar with a bun candy bars. If I'm going to go way back, and I assume that's what you're doing, is going way back. Hostess used to make these apple pies. They're in this green wrapper. They weren't too bad. But even better than the green one, which was apple, they had a lemon one with a lemon filling in there. Again, pretty good. Let's start talking blue cheese Kit Kats. You know, Rip, you're not just a one-trick pony. You can discuss a lot of things, but your favorite thing is chicken wings and with blue cheese, maybe some celery in there. And I have to say, I'd never get tired of you putting feedback in about blue cheese or hot wings. That's it. Rip wouldn't mind a little bit of the spiked candy. That used to be the big thing back in the day. You know, you'd get your candy and you'd spill it out, and your mom's like, no, we got to go through, spread it all out and look for people, inserting razor blades or whatever. Terrible. Terrible people out there. I would be risking it sometimes before I got home and eating some of the candy, like everyone probably. That's something that, there you are. The old Mr. Goodbar. I feel like a lot of these candies are kind of like what you have at Taco Bell. Everything is meat and cheese and some kind of nacho and a chocolate Mr. Goodbar. It's chocolate, and then you just whatever else you want to put in there, some kind of wafer. Isn't that like Mr. Goodbar? Kind of like that. Flint Truth says, I was the one that said Klein didn't play well. I think tight ends are supposed to do more than block. I love Scar, but disagree on Klein. He did block pretty well. Other than that obvious hold on the TD run. Well, yeah, he lined up in the neutral zone. That wasn't too hot either. Yes, thanks for the Halloween. Dots. Dots at Flint are a pretty simple. You get this like waxed paper and just this little dot. Not so great. I don't know about dots. Or is it dots that come in the little box and then they're chewy? There's also those. Those could be I think they're actually called dots, probably what you're talking about. Now I'm thinking about all of the candies over the years. I would get, and these would be the last ones. They used to just put these, they would be small candies. They would be in orange, Halloween orange wrapper, and Halloween black. You get a black piece and an orange piece. And they were hard and they didn't really have great taste. I think they're probably cheap. I never liked those. Those were pretty much there at the end. Yeah, don't get arrested. Zero pit. Yeah, candy corn would also be in the. It would be there at the end. Like, no thanks. Bun maple candy bars were a square shape and had peanuts in them. Also, chunky candy bars. Now, chunky, I'm down with it. Chunky was unique in that it came in a square, but it was a large square. It's been a long time since I thought about a chunky candy bar, but you're right about the raisins. I don't mind raisins, just like I don't mind coconut, but I would rather go sans coconut and no raisins. Give me the chunky, and then give me Almond Joy's got nuts. But they both Mounds don't. But do they both have coconut? Mounds has chewy coconut. Ooh. Woo! Now you get some real bottled Coca-Cola from Mexico. I don't know what a buzzball is. You know, I'm old enough to go out where there would be one of the neighbors who would have a popcorn ball. I don't know how it was as big as a baseball. And they would, hey, here's a popcorn ball. Wasn't wrapped up. Just, hey, here it is. You drop that boy in there. I don't know what they had sticking it together, but it was. And somebody would throw some loose change in there. I remember. I don't know if they do that back in the day. A couple pennies, probably. I don't know. They'd get some of those. How about the ones that just have like the straight sugar mix? Maybe you get something to dip them in there. Just pour that out. Next thing you know, straight sugar. Let's do it. A buzzball. Yeah, buzzball might not have been. I don't know, Randy. You might be from not around Southeast Michigan. All right, let's go to basketball. As Rip is talking about it, and Michigan does have their opener against OU coming up. Is it a 9:30 start? I think it's late. Could be 8:30, but it's a late one on Monday. Yeah, I'm expecting this team to finish as the champion in the Big Ten, or right there with Purdue, 1-2. And either win the Big Ten regular season or win the Big Ten tournament title again. And then I'm expecting this team I'm going to pick them to get to the Final Four. Win the Big Ten, either tournament or regular season, and get to the Final Four. They're that good. They've got a star player. They can wear you down with their size on their front line. I don't know of all of the teams out there, but I don't think there's a team in the country that's going to have better big men than Michigan. And the more unique men. Morris Johnson Jr. could play for any team in the country. That guy, at times, he has sequences where he just looks like a flat-out superstar. I love this guy. I think he will take the college basketball world by storm this year. I'm talking about MJJ from Michigan. Yaks against St. John's, 3 straight possessions where he's posting up and getting the and ones. I mean, they couldn't stop him. They're trying to follow him and they can't. A little mechanical with his shot, but he's a 5-tool player. There were only 2 players last year that led their team in scoring, rebounding, assists, steals, and block shots. One was the number 1 overall pick, Cooper Flagg. Number 2 is Yaks. Yaks is something else. But they do need start to look at it. Let's see who's going to be able to shoot it from downtown. I know that Cheddar can. Man, that kid can shoot, flat out shoot. Cheddar. And we know Namari Burnett can flat out shoot. Can Cadeau, the ball handling behind Cadeau, Kaysen, Yaks, Trey McKinney. Every team, if your point guard gets into foul trouble, it can affect your team. That's one of the things, the shooting. And then there's the turnover aspect where they were coughing it up left and right in the preseason, a lot like last year. They do play at a higher tempo, and they get way more shots up than teams that just come down and pass it around and exchange and then go. They're getting over the timeline. They're looking to get a shot up. Shots, possessions. They want a lot, so you're going to get more turnovers. And when it's kind of a frantic pace, you get over the timeline and you don't have the ball, you're not standing there like, throw it to me. If you don't get it, you got to move. And I think at times when you're going so fast, you get it. Next thing you know, you're throwing it. Nobody's there. It's out of bounds. I thought the good news was against St. John's in the last 15 minutes, they only had 2 turnovers. In winning time, when it counted, it didn't happen. I'll tell you what, this is exactly what I think. Michigan Go Blue 1234 says he feels like Gale is better off the bench. So do I. I do too. I don't think you can count on Gale. He doesn't, to me, I don't feel good with him in the starting lineup and handling the ball all that much. But what he does bring is he is an incredible athlete who at times can, he's a straight line driver, but he's got NBA type athleticism. And then we know that he had his 26-point masterpiece against Texas A&M in the tournament, so we know he can explode. I say bring him in off the bench and let him cook. And if he's throwing, you figure, look, he's going to come in, he's going to spin, he's going to dunk, he's going to throw a couple on the stands, he's going to drop the ball out of bounds, he's going to jump without, knowing where he's at, and it's going to look terrible. But he's also going to throw some dunks down, and he's going to hit some threes. That's a bench guy. Bench. So I am with you on that. I want to see Gale off the bench. Maybe he starts, and then when McKinney comes around, or they want to go with their jumbo front line. They got a lot of different things they can do, but yeah, I'm with you on that. Ferris talking about Greenfield Village. It's been a long time since I've been to Greenfield Village. Denny sends his kids out to trick and treat, and they're all treats. Yeah, my kids now are too old to go out to trick or treat. Flint says, he gets his kids talking about parties at Michigan tonight are going to be crazy. Got news for you. College parties are great to begin with. You add in a holiday, just Halloween, the trend to look good and dress up, wear your Sydney Sweeney dress, Sweeney see-through dress, do your hair up like she did and wear a see-through dress. Hey, I'm Sydney Sweeney. What's up? I don't know. That would sound like a pretty good outfit to me. At least what I saw. Yeah, I don't know what. Again, buzzball. I said, no. Is a buzzball. I can remember. So you get the quarter barrels, but then it was party ball. But there was beer in it, and it looked like a jack-o'-lantern, but it was a beer ball. I don't know how much beer was in that. I mean, they got like mini keg things. Maybe that's what you're talking about. Sounds good. People still talking buzzball. Craisins. Cranberry, dried up cranberry. Rip puts raisins in the same category as Satan. How about the candy with liquor in them? I don't think you get those at Halloween necessarily, but you get to Christmas. My mom makes rum balls, and then you get those chocolate ones. They got like a shot of liqueur in there. That's not really for me. That's not. Ferris says basketball is. Ferris is throwing some Curtis Blow lyrics down. Basketball is his favorite sport. He likes the way they dribble up and down the court. Just like the Dr. J and Moses Malone. I like slam dunks that take me to the hoop. My favorite play is the alley-oop. I like the pick and roll. I like the give and go. It's basketball. Curtis Blow. Yeah. Tell me, were you in the joint the night Wilt scored 100 points when who went back to back and didn't give nobody no kind of flack when Dr. J shook the whole damn team with moves that came right out of a dream? It's basketball. Oh, yeah. More Halloween talk. Belgian chocolates, please. For DVR, my mom. There you go. All right. Is Will Cheddar a starter this year? How good are big men? I answered this question. Give me 10 Cheddars, and you're going to the Final Four. I love the Will Cheddar. I love how he plays, and he is a straight-up marksman from downtown. Tremendous shooter. But no, I don't think you're going to start Cheddar. I think he's a great player to come on in. He gets in last year. He did get himself into foul trouble a lot. He's playing hard, throwing his body around, guarding anyone, he can. No, but I don't. As far as the big men, I think Michigan's got the best big men in the country. And to me, that starts with Yaks. And, Yaks is listed at, what is he listed at? 6'9", but he's got a 7'4" wingspan. So when I say big, Yaks is a 5'2" guy, but he's got a 7'4" wingspan. And Morris Johnson is 6'9". He's got a 7'2" wingspan. Ade Mara is 7'2", 7'3". He's got a 7'6" wingspan. Mara, you say how good our big man is. I have been most surprised from what I have seen from watching his film at UCLA to watching a practice this summer in July to have watched another practice this fall and then have watched the 2 exhibition games. I think Ade Mara is a huge part of this team. He is a tremendous rim protector. He's a great passer, and he has got more post moves than I was aware of. I think he could be a star. That's how good I think Mara is. And I already said that I think Morris Johnson is going to take the college basketball world by storm. He does things. For instance, I watched him this summer games or under 19. Was it? They weren't the Olympics. The Worlds. They were playing for a gold medal. And you would watch him, and he was contesting 3-point shots, and he was blocking some of them. And he did that against St. John's. He went up, he blocked it with his left hand, grabbed the ball, made a move, went around and went coast to coast and was throwing it down. And guys in the NBA, looking at that saying, nice. He looks like an NBA player at times. Very high on Morris Johnson Jr. Everybody's high on Yaks. And I only saw him at practice. They got this big German. He's 21 years old. He's a 7-footer. Cordell, he looks like he's got a Big Ten. Hell, he's got an NBA body already. He's a big. He's at practice. They throw it up to him. He's jamming it, but he's pretty good around the rim. I don't know how much he's going to play, but that's 4 guys who have legit 7-foot plus wingspans. Rip is talking about Danny Wolf being a bust. I would. I haven't watched much of the NBA, so I haven't been keeping an eye on Danny Wolf. I watched a little bit of the Pistons play the Magic last night, and I watched a little bit of their opener. But With the NBA, I'm kind of easing into it a little bit. I'm more of a college basketball now, but when college football's going on, and NBA is going to have to be on the back burner a little bit. But if I have to say one thing that I've noticed about the NBA is that people are flipping their lid about Wembenyama. Oh, Wemby! I see all these highlight packages of him, and so he's 7'5", and he's got, I don't know, 8-foot wingspan or whatever else. I don't find myself being very entertained by watching him. Now, if the Pistons got him with the first pick, maybe I would just be, like all of these other people, like, oh my God, he's just so awesome. Now, on opening night, he went in and drove the basket and threw it down behind his head. It didn't look like he jumped. It looked like me on an 8-foot rim, and it just doesn't. I'm not sitting there. It's not very pleasing to watch. All right, so he blocks a shot, dribbles up, and takes a 30-footer. Woo! The Spurs. I just see all these NBA people are like tripping out. Oh, this is it. He's just the greatest. He's not the greatest to watch. For me, I'm not finding myself that entertained with him. That's it. Ferris, this is a good point. Give me, Purdue in basketball. Not the same in football. Very good at football, not very good at, or very, very good at basketball, not very good at football. Yeah, there's the question. Depth at point guard is Kaysen. So, you're how much you're going to have to rely on him with Cadeau getting into foul trouble. That'll be big. Of course, if there's an injury, and that's how seasons get derailed. Ferris asking how many schools out there are football and basketball schools. Oh, traditionally not many. I think of Florida. Who else is jumping to mind? Let me look at the top 25 right now, currently. Anybody else completely just, you're thinking, oh, yeah, they're a basketball and football school. Look at the top 25 in college basketball, I guess. Well, they're not giving me. Oh, here we go, the rankings. So it's not Purdue, not Houston, Florida, like I mentioned. UConn's not much. Michigan, Alabama. Am I ready to put Tennessee on that list? Alabama, Tennessee, Michigan, Florida. I say Florida. Florida's no good in football. Okay. Rip says Wolf will getting waived by the end of the season and then going to Tel Aviv. You don't waive first round picks unless, so I would say that is very unlikely to happen. I mean, he's got a guaranteed 3-year deal. After 3 years, could there be something where you're talking about it doesn't work out for him and he's, puts his $15 million in his back pocket and says, so long? That's it. Rep says I'm old. It's all right. He puts Skittles in his liquor. I'm not going to. I don't even know what I was going to say. Oli ball. Ferris was into my music. Big discussion 76. What's up? Winters Grady looks more ready than Trey McKinney, in my opinion. Well, Winters has got a good-looking outside shot, so I see what you're saying from that. But I'm going to say something about Trey McKinney. I've just watched him shoot, and I like it. I like how his, if you draw up a picture, what is a smooth, perfect form 3-point shooter as you would want to see it. I would put a picture of Trey McKinney at 6'4" and say, this is exactly what you want to do when you shoot. I think that McKinney will be Michigan's best 3-point shooter by year's end. When I look at it, it is just it's poetry in motion. It's exactly fundamentally like you would want anybody to shoot. It's just going to start going in left and right. Just keep that in mind. Michigan go blue 1, 2, 3, 4. There's nothing to be down on McKinney. Yeah, Grady's look good shooting the ball, and he's going to get a little burn. But McKinney is going to be a great shooter for Michigan, and he will be their best shooter. Rip's got Cordo listed at 7.2. Now, let's see. I've got a sheet that has the numbers listed in here. So let's see. And I am going to say that you are correct. Cordell is 7.2. Nice job. Hey, Rip, you're not just a blue cheese and liquor ball type. I mean, you got some game. Somebody on Twitch talking something crazy. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I like the NBA, and I like the Pistons. I'm just not. And I watched opening night. Just not. I'm not into it right now. It's not yet. What do we? I don't know. Here we are. Couple more. It used to be that you would watch the NBA in October to June, not now. Well, if I could say one thing about the NBA, I see people are getting excited about that it's back on NBC and the music from the 80s that we liked, BD 76, he's probably a basketball fan like me from back in the day. And, NBC had that music and how they're doing it, and people like that presentation. So, and Tirico calls a good game. So I'm down with all of that. I like all of that. When the talk is more about the music and I wonder about what's going on, when it's more about do I want to sit down and play poker with Chauncey Billups? Maybe that's a little bit. Take a little break. You guys admittedly don't care about the regular season. You take games off left and right. You you got players that are fixing the games. If you're going to do all that, why am I going to care right off the bat about everything that's going on? I'm watching the Pistons, but come on. LJ is a scoring point guard. I agreed with that. Like his parents weren't even born in the 80s. How about Linda Joe says Michigan's not only good in football and basketball, but they also are good in hockey. True that. That's true. It is. Yes, Rip. Thank you. Like the live chat. Ferris wants to talk some old school basketball. He says Jordan was 0-3 versus the Pistons in the playoffs. Had to wait until the NBA changed the officiating, and then the Pistons got old to break through. Now, there is some truth to that. The Pistons did hold off Michael Jordan But Jordan, I would say this is not factual. He was not 0-3 versus the Pistons. Or are you saying that he started out and lost his first 3 series and then they put in the Jordan rules and then David Stern changed the rules and then Jordan was able to top the Pistons? Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I'm not here to dispute any of that. Believe what you want. But do I think Jordan was getting a lot of calls? And oh yeah, that happened. And they didn't want, the Pistons were holding him, dragging him, pushing him, bad boying him, and they started calling the hand checking and everything else. And the Jordan rules were now Jordan fouls, and they were parade to the free throw line and all that. Sure. I guess, overall, that is true. You're not going to find an argument for me. That must be a beautiful jump shot. Looks like I'm describing a bottle of wine. Well, McKinney, I think that's a good way to do it, is think about him as a bottle of wine. You've just got this bottle, and it's sitting in there. And sure, you can crack it open, and it probably, tastes pretty good right now, but just that thing's going to get better the more that it sits up in that rack. And then when you pop that cork, you're going to be like, oh yeah, Trey. You forgot about Trey. Oh, that's Dre. You forgot about. That's it. Ferris wants to talk about his own game. Let's see what he says. He says he was listed at 6'2", but had an afro big enough for a pick. He's now down to 5'10" with a bald spot that requires the hat, I guess, cowboy hat for the Southern Cal sun. Well, you really you shrunk up, Ferris, in your game. I used to be able to, if somebody would say, without knowing who they were, if we were just talking like this, and, they'd say, hey, some people talk a bigger game and all this kind of stuff, and that's good. I talk a big game myself. I went out of focus, seeing if I can change it. Focus back in. Must want me to stop the show. It's not. I don't know why it does that. I guess I'm on blurry mode right now. See if I can change it. I have something so I can focus. Oh, there it is. It's back. What was I going to say? Oh, people talking. I could tell just by talking with people if I could take them out or not on the basketball floor. And the biggest tell would be how tall they are. Anybody that would be under 6 foot, I could pretty much beat. I mean, I'm no pro, no college player or anything. But when it comes to people that play basketball, I was better than average player. And if you're under 6 feet tall, you better be really fast, or I could go to work on you down low. And then you better not let me shoot, or you get in trouble that way too. So if you could be too small, or you could be too arrogant and think, okay, I'm going to let him shoot. I don't know if you're talking about one-on-one. It gets to be a little bit different when it's one-on-one. It's tough when you have to go against somebody that's muscular and tall, and you're playing one-on-one and they're all over you. But in a team, when you're running, you can get away from people. As somebody who's not as big, to be able to get your own shot. And then if they're not respecting your jumper, they're in trouble. My jumper. That's what I would know back in the day. And I like going to work on down on the low post on people. I know that for guard, and it's like that when you're a center like Shaq, you want to be a point guard. You're a point guard like Elliot Cadeau. You want to take people off the dribble, but you don't mind, getting them down in the post either, because then you can show them, some of those moves. Yeah, that's Mr. Big Shot and Rip. That's what they call when you look at your cards and you got a 2-7 off suit. and you know you're going to win because you know what everybody else's cards are or whatever else. That's it. So I think we're about done here. How's where we're at? Let's see. We're talking dunking here. Ferris wants to say when he was 22, he started jumping higher than the rim. He was probably 6 weeks of training away from dunking, but alas, that will never happen in this life. You know what I know about dunking? I never dunked either. That sucked. I got to reveal over the years, at least once. I would wish it was more, but I'll say maybe twice. I would dream that I could dunk. And those are some of if I could have my top 10 dreams, the one where I'm out there and I'm dunking is the best. And sometimes I would get there where I think that I was dunking, or I was dunking in like the pregame or something, or a practice, and then the game started, and I never actually got out there to dunk on people, which, I'm like, let's get it going here in the dream a little bit better. I don't care about, sitting on the bench or I want to get out there in the game. But there was at least the one dream where I actually was out there and playing, and they'd throw the ball to me and I'd dream. Boom! I was like, I didn't know it was a dream. This is the greatest feeling of all time. Oh, there's another one. Punch. 2 hands. Rocking the rim. That was good. I forgot what the other point I was going to make. It was about, Ferris talking about his game and jumping. Oh, I remember. There was a kid when I was in high school who played, and he wasn't all that big. He's about 5'9", 5'10". Well, he must have hurt something upper body, like tore his shoulder up, so he couldn't play. So the whole year, the only thing he did was sit on the side, and then he got these platform-like shoes. They had a big platform, and I don't know, whatever they did, they worked his calves or whatever, and he looked goofy. But, he couldn't practice. The only thing you would do over on the side, you would see him over there jumping. He comes back the next year. He might have grew an inch or two. He might have been close to 6 feet. But he was dunking left and right. Whoa. Throwing it down. Those things work. Like Ferris, I guess it was just too late in life for me. I never went and got any of those, but I should know what those are, but I don't. 76 Sports dunked a handful of times, but never in actual competition. Yeah. Dunked on a few times. That's not a lot of fun. You know what is fun? Is a short rim where you can go out and you can dunk. If I do have a basketball rim out in the front yard, and you can lower it down. My son liked to dunk but I always said, we got to keep it up at 10 feet. We'd have a little fun when it was down, come in, throw a couple down, but you want to keep that thing at 10 feet. Am I going to watch any Halloween movies tonight? I haven't thought about. I'm going to watch the World Series. I think that's on. That's what's going on. Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with Seinfeld, but that wasn't in my wheelhouse. I know for a lot of people, they can quote it chapter and verse. Everyone. I watched more Seinfeld with the volume down, and then I've watched it more in just like highlights on TikTok in the last couple of years than I ever watched any kind of free or any kind of entire episode. Linda can dunk donuts. I'm rooting for the Blue Jays. I like the underdog. I don't want to see the Dodgers go back to back, so I want to see the Jays close it out. What else? Oh, I've got my prediction on the game. So Michigan, a 21 and a half point favorite. And I think for me, I'm looking forward to, I would like to see Underwood throw the ball a lot to McCulley, a lot to Marsh, and a lot to the tight ends. No one else. I don't really need to. I know you want to make a case with Browder coming in or some. All right, but mostly I want to see a passing game that looks like it can throw for more than 100 yards. I'd like to see the completion percentage be above 60. Those two things. And on defense, I know it's Bowles, but really, I don't know, maybe Zach Ludwig, but Chase Taylor and Nathaniel Owusu Boateng, that's who I want to see. That's what I'm going to be locked in about. I have Michigan winning this game 38-13. That covers the 21.5. And so there you go. That's how I want to see it play out. What is going to play out over the next couple days is that you're going to have the game tomorrow. And then we will be with you here on Monday and then also Monday night for the basketball game. So there you go. I'll take 34-0. I don't mind that. Let's see some tight end action. Good with me. What I was going to say over on the Maize and Blue Review, this is what we do all day long. And then when it gets dark, we're doing it at night too. Maize and Blue Review after dark. I guarantee you'll love it. You love the Michigan talk, the banter. That's what it's all about. The straight up news with everything that's going on with Michigan. Not just football, not just basketball, not just hockey, all over the place with Michigan sports. You're going to like everyone there. So that's how it works. Go to On3 and just, click it up. Maize and Blue Review. We'd love to see you over there. Take care. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great and safe Halloween.